I'm Lucy Jeffries and I'm the director of Quiet Down There. We work in Brighton Open Market, we're an arts charity and we offer alternative routes to creativity. The whole ethos is that we provide creative activity in places where people already are, so it removes that barrier of trying to get people into a space that they might be unfamiliar with.
My name's Susie and I run So Fabulous, which is a sustainable sewing and textile studio based here in the open market. We run workshops and outreach events, courses and classes.
So the project we did for the Co Lab was called Urban Fabric, and it was a collaboration with So Fabulous, who were also on the balcony. And we had the idea to engage with different groups, to really engage with them to think about the urban environment here, very specifically in the market and in and around London Road.
So we work with children from local schools, the Multicultural Women's Group and some people that we work with already at the studio, so drop-in people and also some of the children who come to classes here. And everybody sat around and made a textile collage on a piece that was like roughly A4 sized. They made a piece around somewhere that they really had an affinity to in the local area.
So obviously we're in Brighton, a lot of people automatically went for blue for the sea. That was a great entry point. So we can talk about, okay, you've chosen blue because of the sea. How often do you go to the sea? Where do you go more often? And then we were talking about places that were more local and then thinking about the colours of those places and the textures of those places and bringing in other bits and pieces so that the finished artworks did feel representative of the local area.
We digitally combined them. We basically just kind of knitted together like 6 groupings of artworks and then we printed it on a roll of fabric. And then it was up to the groups really to decide what was next for this piece of fabric. How would it be used? How would it get out into the world, into the local community? And they decided on making aprons that could be worn by the traders in the open market. And we ended up constructing about 6 aprons. And then we did a photo shoot with traders from the open market and different people modelled the aprons in front of their shops, modelling the urban fabric out in the world.
My name is Judith. I'm a lecturer and I have a practice in the built environment, which involves making digital artefacts related to the transatlantic slave trade. For this project, I worked with the Centre for Memory, Narratives and Histories at the University of Brighton. One of the things that's interesting about Brighton, as opposed to other cities who acknowledge the existence of slave owners in their city, was that there's no trace of it here. If we're beginning to think about the idea of reconstructing a history that is very fragmented, we need to be able to find the information, that's first and foremost. So what I did for the Sussex Co Lab was to think about how to map data onto the city so that it was discoverable and usable using a mobile phone, so that people didn't have to download an app and so that they could be involved with the idea of story making new stories from old fragmented parts of the archive. The main part of the artefact is this interactive map, so you'll see at least 88 data points on a map representing where people who owned people lived. You can press on each of those and it brings up how many people, what the compensation was in 1835, and then therefore what that means in today's money. You can also figure out where you are amongst that data point by pressing a button which homes in on your position using your location. So the work bridges the digital information and brings it into the built environment so that it can be viewed and experienced.
My name's Lizzie Lower and I am a maker and a creative producer and director at Hospitable Environment. So Hospitable Environment is a community arts organisation based in New Haven. We work with food and creativity to give people a chance to connect and get together and explore issues and ideas that affect the town.
My name is Ellie JB. I'm an artist, a therapeutic practitioner. I work relationally with people and place, and I co-founded Hospitable Environment in 2019. For the Co Lab project, we hosted 2 soup and socials and 2 workshops. Soup and Social is an old format that we've been using since February 2022, which is a free community meal and conversation. For the first Soup and Social, we had a question, which we were exploring as to what is your favourite place in New Haven and why. They would then create a postcard or some type of artwork and put it up on a map that we made of New Haven. And this allowed for people to have connection and conversations and for local knowledge to be mapped out. The workshops were Dreamer, Editor, Maker, which was the idea was to dream big as to what we want to see in the town and then edit it down into something that we could actually make. And there was models that were made around saunas, climbing walls, a DJ school, lots of open spaces and ponds and natural green living walls were made. And this was a really sort of exciting, fun workshop that we did with the community. We did that twice. And then the last Soup and Social we did was around showcasing all of that work and inviting people to make more things to add to the map. And within that Soup and Social we had residents, community groups, and also members of the district council came to also see the work.
The final part of the project was an exhibition of our project and the other 2 that made up the Co Lab, and we worked at Lighthouse in Brighton, which was a really great venue. We had a big room downstairs and we displayed all of the portraits around the edge of the room, and we had a market stall and we made a canopy out of the urban fabric so that when you went up to it you could look inside and from the outside and really see the fabric in its kind of entirety.
It meant we could tell the participants it's going to be exhibited, your work's going to be exhibited, it's a city centre venue, you can go and see it, you know, we'll take you. So I think for the participants it felt great that there was this, like, not only just an outcome that was concrete, but there was an outcome that was really public.
So in terms of the exhibition, we decided to show a large interactive version of the website on a screen, and together with 9 images of locations which were the locations of the former slave owners' houses.
So within the exhibition we were able to showcase the maps and also all the objects that people made of what they wanted to see in the town. We also had an interactive piece around the whole of the East Sussex coast, asking people where their favourite places were, which was another interactive element that people could take part in. To have our work showcased outside of our community was really a celebration and an exciting moment.
So the Co Lab was a really interesting piece of work to be involved with. The fact that it was arts research that was going to hopefully influence planning and local decision-making processes was really interesting. It was a very great intersection between all of these different disciplines, and probably not something that we would have got funding for just off our own back. Obviously, I know that people enjoy creative textiles stuff because it's what I've always done, but I think this combination of really wanting to talk to them about their expertise whilst running an activity that kept their kind of hands going and it was creative, it was a great combination of things together.
People already had quite a lot to say about the local area in terms of what worked for them and what didn't. Even if they'd never articulated that before, it was obviously thoughts that they'd had just about what works for them in public space and what doesn't.
We did manage to go quite in deep quite quickly with some of the conversations and questions, and I think that was really down to our relationships that we had already with people, basically, and the trust that we'd already built, and also not to underestimate asking people what they really think.
It was really wonderful to work with academics and researchers on this type of work. We hadn't had that opportunity to do that before, and it was also great to meet other projects working in a similar way. So that, you know, allowed us to do a bit of sort of partnership working with an unexpected group of people. It also really allowed us to get our work and this type of work in front of a much broader audience, including commissioners, and we've had a lot of conversations since with local authority, public health, Sussex Community Development Association, who've asked us to do some training for them. So it's opened up opportunities for us.
So there is a place for creativity in this, and there is a place for interacting with people in different ways. I think one of the important things was about having community facilitators as part of it, as part of the policy. I know we often talk about gatekeepers that give you access into particular communities or help you understand particular communities. But I think one of the real strengths of hospitable environment is their ability to facilitate a space.
It was also nice working with others, and the development of that idea from the initial sandbox, which often doesn't happen in funding calls, was really good, I think. So there was an opportunity to kind of understand what your ask could be in terms of your proposal, and then go ahead and write it, and then be part of a team, which really worked.
As a small organisation, we do often work with very large organisations, so we are used to the power imbalance, and we've found ways to sort of handle that as an organisation. But I do wonder if you're commissioning something that's quick and is going to be potentially working with sole traders. You know, we're lucky, we're an organisation, you know, we can move stuff around, but obviously sole traders can't. You know, whether there's another better way of doing that with a third organisation.
The challenges within this residency was around the time. Didn't feel like there was enough time for us to be able to deliver all of the work we wanted to. It felt like it was very quick fire, and we had to do quite a lot in a short space of time to then deliver.
For participants in this kind of work, it can be a frustrating feeling to not have any feedback. You know, one of the important things I think for policy and makers and planners is to feed back afterwards with where the information has gone to. So I think people can feel that they contributed and then that was the end of their participation.
This project taught me about placemaking and policy making in terms of understanding how the past is represented in place. I think that it's really important that different communities have a voice. It's really important that different communities have the opportunity to find themselves represented in the place in order to move forward. I think that this place is a really interesting city. It's very welcoming, but only so far.
The project taught me quite a lot about placemaking, and I think one of the biggest take-home things really from that is that to do this type of work you have to really know the landscape, the locality, the ecosystem, the way that the buildings and the people interact together. I just don't think we could have done this project if we hadn't have been here for almost 10 years now, working with the local community. So we could have these really kind of precise conversations about how do you feel when you walk between this particular shop and the bus stop on London Road, and how does that atmosphere change, and why do you think that is?
Working with Co Lab and thinking about policy and placemaking, it really reminded us of the distance between the people commissioning the work and the people who were going to be experiencing the built environment at the end. And there's quite a big distance between those two sets of people. And I think any project like this is obviously to be welcomed and encouraged. Anything that's seeking to reduce that gap is important. I think it reaffirmed our feeling that the people that live in a place are the experts of the place. And so it's really important to empower them from the beginning to work alongside rather than to work over. When I saw the fabric, I definitely had an emotional moment.
It was a real encapsulation of so many conversations, of so much effort. People gave so much of themselves to that.
The ripples are going out wider than most of the projects that we do. And that is because, you know, it was based here, but also because, you know, it was funded really well. And the collaboration between So Fabulous and us, I think, just created this really lovely feeling that kind of travelled through the market.
It was a really interesting process, really positive process. And I would like to see more of these calls, more of these opportunities for people who describe themselves as artists or not, but have a series of ideas that they can be supported in bringing to the fore, I think.
I think the thing I might not have been expecting was actually, and this is not meant to sound kind of cynical, but how joyful it was, and how engaged everyone was, and how much they wanted to share their creativity and activity with each other. That's not to say people weren't realistic about some of the challenges that were being discussed about the town, but actually it was done in a really positive way and very affirming way and very collaboratively.
It was great to be involved, it was great to work in this way, and it made us realise that actually we can participate in research about this kind of thing, and that, you know, that's a really valuable part of the work that we're doing as well.
This work doesn't end here for us. It's a very emotional journey because we care so much about our environment. We care about trying to make this town the best it can be for each other, but also for the wildlife and the ecosystem. We are thinking around creating design principles for our town from this residency that we can then make sure we're advocating for in different avenues, and we can make sure that we're also thinking around putting people in place and the planet over profit, and making sure that we have a clear way of communicating that.